we invited two friends to share some ideas to inspire us a little bit. There are two friends from the house that we really admire. We have with us Ranjit Disale and Maggie MacDonnell. Ranjit from India, Maggie from Canada, two of the winners of the Global Teacher Prize, amazing teachers doing a great job on their communities. And we want to discuss a few questions with them just to be inspired to get into the meeting. Welcome to the floor, Ranjit, and welcome, Maggie. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Augustine, for such kind words and welcoming. I'm so honored and so excited to meet all the members of Teachers Task Force.
Absolutely, me too. Let me echo everybody. I'm excited to be here and glad to jump into this conversation and connect with such a fascinating group of principals.
That's amazing, and we are very honored to have you here. We are discussing school leaderships. We want to help around the world to understand and improve school leadership. And you are not school principals, but you are school leaders. That's for sure. So we want to learn from that experience. And you can, of course, share a message to school principals, being great teachers, of what helped you on your careers. Let me ask you the first question for both of you is, as school leaders, not school principals, what were challenges, one of the biggest challenges that you have to overcome, and some advice on how or what did you do in order to overcome that?
Okay, ladies first, I'll jump in. So my name is Maggie and I taught in the Canadian Arctic, and it's probably, one of the most challenging places to teach in the world. We have only a 5 to 10% graduation rate. We have the world's highest rate of youth suicide. We have tremendous issues with poverty, housing crisis, cost of living, intergenerational trauma, colonization, and I'm working with Indigenous youth. And for me, when it came to principals, I was a little nervous when Augustine reached out, because I said, it was almost a revolving door where I worked. We had tremendous turnover, not just in teachers, but in principals. Sometimes in a year, we would go through 4 to 5 principals because there was so much burnout, there was so much stress, and it was so challenging to work in that environment. So often as the teachers who remained, a lot of leadership fell upon our shoulders because there were actual gaps, from, November to December where we simply didn't have a principal, in the school. And so teachers such as myself, who had been in the community for a few years, we took on certain roles that were kind of beyond the classroom per se. But an advantage to being in that situation is I did see a lot of principals come, and I had the advantage to sort of learn a little bit from each style that was there. But I think, and I think this is so challenging, and I can dive into it in a later question, but trying to build that culture of trust amongst your teachers is so important. So many principals are gifted leaders. They've had success in their own individual careers. And like I'll always say, if you run by yourself, you run so fast. And some of our principals came in with their own ideas, their own vision, and they just wanted to explode and solve all the problems in a week, but they had to run with everybody to run far. And to know how to do that in sometimes a very stressful situation, if you're teaching in a challenging context, how to trust your teachers, how to give them trust, how to trust your students, and make sure that you're not the only leader in the school, but that you have a culture of leaders, leadership within the school. I think that's the key to success. And we can dive into that more, but I'll pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Ranjit.
Thank you. And what a way exactly Maggie has explained the leadership role of teacher in the situation where Maggie is working currently right now. Hats up to her work and her inspiring work and motivation. In terms of my work is considered, what were the challenges before me as a school leader. Here in India, where I'm currently teaching, teachers are expected to play, versatile roles. Sometimes they become a principal, sometimes they become a teacher, sometimes they become a food serving. So they have to play multiple roles while they become a teacher. Early days when I was appointed as a teacher, so at the time I had to start from getting back my classroom because my classroom was used as a cattle sale, and my principal, who told me that it's now your responsibility, it's your role now to get back that classrooms. You have to teach wherever you want, but this is your classrooms. So just imagine I was 20 years old at the time, new young boy who had faced such a situation on a first day of his joining. And you can imagine someone like he might collapse, he might demotivated, but I think that the inner inspiration of myself had boosted my morale, and the situation really helps me to fight against the problems. And I think I myself consider as I'm a fighter. I never give up, and that instinct or that spirit of never giving up really boosted me a lot during the career and becoming a good teacher. Much of the world today struggles to provide quality universal educations, particularly to the girls. And at the same time, many countries suffer political tensions and conflict, whether from within the country or from the outside. And this disrupts education, it disrupts growth, it stops us from creating a better future and solving problems of our country, right? But what I've consistently found is that empowering students, particularly girls, is an essential first step towards tackling these issues. Getting them to believe in themselves and become self-starting learners is one of the biggest and the best gift you can give as a teacher to your students. Second, we as a teacher must be prepared to tailor our teaching to both individual students and to their communities as well. We have to look and to see what the real needs are rather than coming to teaching with a prefix program or the prefix mindsets. Equally, we have to become a part of our communities and show why education is important by our own example. Technology can be a helpful tool in this, but it must always serve an educational end. Never it should be like an end.
Th- Thank you very much, Ranjit, and both Maggie. I think it's you're talking with a real experience from the ground, and both Maggie trying to solve the issues of the graduation rates and real issues that you have every day on the school, and you are champions. You are really doing the good stuff. So your advice is really helpful and it's inspiring for principals who would love to. I think any principal would love to have you as teachers on their teams. So let me ask you. I will quote Beatrice Pont for the next questions, and she highlights. She says, and I will read the quote: "School leadership, by influencing teacher motivation, improves student academic performance and the institutional climate. School leadership is essential for improving educational efficiency and equity. Such is the relevance of the role of a school principals that is difficult to imagine a good school that doesn't not have a good principal who leads the school. That is something that we can discuss. Although having a good principal is not sufficient condition for having a great school, it is evident that it's really needed to have and to work to improve and to empower school principals. What is your opinion on this? What is the role of principals? What do you think about this idea of Pond? And the main question here is, what do you think that makes an effective school leader?
I think an effective school principal or school leader comes with or is willing to invest in themselves the tools to have high emotional intelligence and to be almost experts at reading people and understanding people and knowing how to build cohesive teams. If you want me to be a motivated and happy teacher, you need to know my values. You need to know how to connect with them. So for me, I'm a creative, I'm a disruptor, I'm a risk taker. That's going to be a challenge in some point. Initially, for a lot of my principals, I'm sure, were confused by my style. I did so much of my teaching outside the classroom doors, which was for some principals who are more conservative, who are more risk averse, was troubling at first, because they couldn't, let's say, micromanage me as easily as they could a teacher bringing as well a more conservative approach that was just as effective, right? But my approach was a bit more disruptive, but it ended up having tremendous amounts of success. So in my case, it took time for my principals, and sometimes this was, to be honest, frustrating for me, for them to understand where I was coming from, and to give me that leash or that rope to take some chances, you know? So often we don't understand the chances and the risks that we're already playing. If I'm teaching in a context where 90% of kids are dropping out, then I know we need to take more risks, because the risk of 9 out of 10 kids dropping out is just not acceptable. So we're going to have to try things in a different way, right? And I think that principle that can allow teachers, and to know that some teachers teach with their heart, you know, and they empathetically connect with students, and that's wonderful. They're going to be able, they're heart of your school. They spread love, they spread kindness. They also carry, you know, a lot of the emotions that the students carry too. So that can be exhausting for them, to know how to connect with that teacher, to know how to connect with that teacher who teaches from their head, from best research practices, who are experts in a subject matter, to know how to connect with that type of teacher, to know how to connect with the teacher who wants to be a creative, who wants to disrupt, you know, in a positive way, and to give them that leash. I think when a principal can harness all of those teachers and let all of them shine, that's when the magic is really going to happen, and that school is simply going to be unstoppable, and it'll encourage teachers to give their best. You know, when I had a principal who could come to me and understand that I was a heart-based teacher, that I was a creative-based teacher, and who would come to me and say, literally, how can I support you in the way in which you teach? I gave not 100%, I gave 500% to that principal when they came to me with that type of approach. So I hope my answer helps in connection. I'll toss it across the world to India right now, and shine, and we'll listen in on what Ranjit will contribute.
It's amazing, your answer. And we we really want to take that course. We want you to be teaching how to read people. I want to enroll in that course.
I should say I do team building and training, and sort of personality traits, how to build cohesive teams, understanding people's values, so that you can learn just within a day or two how to immediately connect to people. Because so often in my school, we all had that same goal. We all wanted those kids to walk across that graduation stage. We all wanted them to be happy, you know, to be fulfilled, but we often approached it from different ways. And sometimes by approaching it from different ways, we had teacher conflict, you know, because we had those who were less risky, those who were more risky, those who were more creative, those who were more conservative, those who went from the heart, those who went from the head. But if we could learn where people were coming from, then we could come together, and our teaching styles just got amplified, and we had so much success when we would be willing to take that time and invest in a team. And I think we see that in the corporate world. We know that they do team building and have all these types of retreats and connect with folks. Why not within our own school systems? And our principals deserve to have that management training. But I'll digress. I'll throw it back to Ranjit.
Thank you, Maggie. We look forward to that. Ranjit.
Yeah, I think after listening to Maggie, I now thinking that becoming a good principal is the toughest job, because becoming a good teacher, it's good because teachers only think of his own classroom, but principal has to think of entire schools. There may be some different classrooms, so it will be the toughest and biggest job as well. But I think good principal, yeah, we need good principals, and at the same time we need good teachers as well. But when ultimately at the end of the day, when we look at the performance of school, we need a collective efforts of all the stakeholders. Not just teachers are performing, it's not sufficient. We need support from management, we need support from principals as well. Just like if teachers are taking risk, and those are the calculated risks, then management or the principal should support them, because uh, there might be some ideas in the minds of teachers, and he might be feeling that this can be done in a different way. So ultimately, principals becoming a leader of a school, they have to just motivate, inspire their staff, inspire the teachers, and believe in them, believe in their ability. They can do, yes, they can do, and they can do it in different ways as well. Here in India, teachers are passionate, really they are passionate, working entirely, putting their heart in the classroom, wanted to do something different. But at the same time, when a principal is not supporting them, then entire system, educational system or the school started deproving themselves. So they outperforms, and the performance start decreasing. I think here is important that not only the principal or the good principal, or not just a good school, or not just a good teachers. I think collective efforts of all the stakeholders makes that ecosystem of school much better, so that we could get excellent results from the students, because ultimately that culture, if student or if the principal are motivating, trusting in teachers, teachers also started trusting and believing in students as well. They starting creating new things, they starting innovating in the classrooms. So I think entire ecosystem should support the classroom and activities in the class.
Thank you very much, bringing or taking us into the focus again. Because at the end, all of these questions are about students, student outcomes, student life, and I really love that. It's something that you have on your skin, that you bring always into the table. Finally, the question: you are both great teachers. I said before, many school principals around the world would love to have you on their teams. We want to have you on the team. We want to have you on the Barkey office working together. But what is the support, or what do you need from your school principal? And and I'm not talking about an academic reply. Like, look, at my question is not what a teacher needs from a school principal. I'm talking Maggie and Ranjit. You personally, what do you need from your school principals? That will be an advice for everyone, but on a personal way to answer.
Um, I think part of it just boils right down to trust. You know, some of the best things one of my principals would say at a team meeting would be, he would emphasize, he's like, please communicate with me, communicate about anything, even the most smallest detail. My door is open. Please let me know, because if an issue arises, I want to be able to support you in the best way possible. And so give me the warning, if you're going to be trying something new, or you're having some issues with a student, or you're sensing. And again, in my school, we had, like, it was even common for police to be coming to the school. We had a lot of school violence. We had a lot of sort of bullying. We had a lot of explosions, physical violence at the school. So it was quite chaotic and hectic. But I thought that was one of the best things that he did, was to say, please, my door is always open. Please come in about the smallest thing. And another wonderful thing that he would do, we would coordinate on this, because so often principals are seen as like the disciplinarians, like the bad guy to enforce the rule on the students or etc. But we had an agreement that whenever my students were doing something spectacular, I would sort of secretly send him a signal, and he would make sure he would come to that classroom and just praise my students. That idea of catching your students doing well. And we tag teamed on that so well. And it was wonderful where I was teaching the kids who were in the alternative program and had some of the highest issues going on, in terms of school violence, etc. But they turned into these like school champions. So as teachers, we love to have that coordination with the principal where you can come in and compliment and emphasize our work for our students. So an open door, trust, and catching teachers doing great jobs and catching students doing great jobs and celebrating that. I think those are some of the keys.
Amazing. Trust
Yeah.
is now on the it has to be on each of our tables. We have to all put on writing trust and think and work together how we can develop that trust. Sorry, Ranjit.
So the trust is a very important support for the teachers. When you have a feeling that my principal is supporting me, is trusting me in my abilities, it gives us pleasure, and it actually boosted our morals. With regards to, just imagine when I was in 2009, and just imagine if my principal didn't believe in me or he didn't trusted me, you never seen the Ranjit today. So that's where the great leaders.
We missed Ranjit. I think he came down, but he was echoing Maggie's words on trust. So I put that in writing for me, and this is something that I have to work today.
Sorry, guys.
Ranjit.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just lost my internet connection. But let me just carry forward it. What sort of support during the pandemic? Teachers across the world were facing so many problems, and they need support from the principals as well. Because support our teachers' resilience to ensure that teachers' effectiveness. Support teachers instructionally to ensure their effectiveness, and support teachers technologically to ensure their effectiveness in the classrooms. Because school system protect teachers job and salaries so that there is a motivated workforce ready to get students back to school when schools will reopen. And we need teachers to have ensuring that their jobs are not going lost, they are getting the salaries. Because right now in this situation of pandemic, many of teachers have lost their jobs, and they will psychologically and financially collapse. I have seen this. So this is the time where we need to support, where teachers or the principals could play their supportive role, how they can save the jobs of teachers, and how because when you are losing a job, it means it will affect entirely on family. And this is the time we need to support teachers, not just individual, but entire teaching community, to support them. They will not losing their job. They're getting the salaries. They feel motivated. Even the world is facing alone, and every individual facing, let's say we are alone, but this teaching community or the teachers should not feel alone. They are alone. If they are feeling alone, just imagine the impact on the students, how students might react, how the students will develop their emotional skills. So it's very important to support teachers in this unprecedented of time.
It's amazing to hear, because in all of your answers you include Ranjit and Maggie. You mentioned your students, and that is something that it came from the bottom of your heart, and it's always here. And it's always good to hear to that. I will summarize your last answers on trust and support to each other, as Ranjit was saying, and trust. And I think they go together. The support of colleagues, of friends, of people at the school will build trust, and that trust will help. It's easier to support a community with trust than without that. So I put trust in writing. I will now write support, and I will go today to reflect how can I trust or build trust on my team and be supportive of others, because these great lessons are to apply today, not tomorrow. We're on an emergency, so let's apply both here today. Thank you very much for both of you, for your time, for your inspiration. It was really great to have you here, and we will continue with the meeting now. Principals prepare to work hard, following that the inspiration from these two great teachers. Thank you very much, and we continue. I give the floor to Magda to continue.